Take control of your life. Break the chains and rise. No more feeling powerless. No more shame. Take your power. Break out of the pain. Because it's more than fornication, more than procreation. It's not just self-stimulation. Sex energy is for creation and transformation and to a new destination. Porn talk, yeah. Change your heart from dark to light. Porn talk, yeah. Break free, take back your power and rise. I said take back your power. I said take back your power. Take back your power and rise.
This is Porn Talk. This is Porn Talk Live. Here is your host, Eric Zuzak.
Welcome to Porn Talk. This is Powerful Eric. This show is not just about breaking addictions. It's about breaking belief systems. We have an amazing guest today, Lorna Gale, based in British Columbia, Canada. She is a leading figure in sexual and spiritual empowerment with certifications as a somatic sexologist and a sex and spiritual alchemist. She offers diverse services, including sexological bodywork, bondage training, and somatic mindset coaching. Lorna believes in the profound connection between sexuality and spirituality, guiding individuals towards wholeness and freedom. Her approach, praised for its intuition and nurturing presence, covers topics such as divine empowerment, healing from trauma, and exploring one's sexuality. Through one-on-one sessions, workshops, and retreats, Lorna helps clients cultivate a deeper connection with themselves and their partners. Welcome, Lorna Gale. Welcome, Lorna.
Thank you so much, Eric. I am thrilled to be here. And as we said before we came on live, that I'm just really excited about the conversation that's going to unfold and flow today and the way that can support those who are listening.
Absolutely. So tell us a little about yourself, your story, and what is a somatic sexologist?
I get asked that numerous times. What is that? And I think, certainly the sex, sex always gets people's attention, right? You have a page, a newspaper, and there's sex when there, and right away, our attention goes there. So there's something really profound about that.
Yeah.
Somatic sexologist is really looking at sex through the lens of the body. Soma, meaning of the body. So learning about sex, the learning of it, as well as the unlearning of some things through the body experience. And certainly, if somebody had asked me, several years ago, would I be here doing this? It was kind of like, are you kidding? Because I came from a very, very conservative religious background, and sexuality was something, that was hardly talked about. And when it was in this container of, it belongs in the bedroom with this one partner after you're married. That was the little box. And so I went into that, my life experience from that lens. And I didn't realize until after being married, and I'd been married to a beautiful man for 30 years, but it was not until I was in the marriage that I realized how disconnected I was from my sexuality. I had never explored myself. I had no idea what pleased me. I had no idea of the sexual erotic energy. And so when we got married, this idea that all of a sudden everything's are going to be all tickety-boo and click into place is kind of like, no. So for me, it was really this feeling disconnected and nothing, and just wasn't there. And so my husband, two different things that he did was, number one, he did some research and found out that according to that research at the time, 40 years ago, you, like most women, are non-orgasmic. Can you be content with what you've got? The second thing that he said 5 years into our marriage was, find out what makes you feel good so you can tell me. So I did. I'm a fast learner. It just took me 20 years to begin that journey of finding out what made me feel good. And so when our girls were raised and out of the home, then it became my turn to find out, who am I? What am I? And so I took some courses, some retreats, some trainings, and in that time was, number one, able to acknowledge that I am a sexual erotic being. And the second thing that was, I was actually really able to meet myself at a very different and deep level. And I'll share a little bit more about that, but it was literally in the mirror. I met myself in the mirror. And I want to talk about this as we go into our conversation today, Eric, because mirrors and stories actually are really pivotal and crucial to my own experience, and also what I speak and how I teach and work with people. But this aspect of the mirror, and in that, in this, what I call my midlife sexual awakening, I literally had this aha and this awareness and awakening within my body that this isn't bad and wrong and shameful like I've been taught. It's so pure and good and right. And the one piece, and the song that plays at the beginning of your podcast, that talks about letting go of the shame, and that was the depth that I needed to get to, so I could actually have a different experience, was to meet that level of shame that was there, and not just shame about my sexuality or my body or whatever else I might perceive, but it was actually existential shame, that a shame that I even existed.
Mm.
And once I was able to reach into that depth, then all of a sudden it was a whole new experience, a 180 degree. And then I went on. I taught in the school system for several years, almost a decade. And then I was teaching energy work for another almost 10 years. And then when I had my midlife sexual awakening, it just became this natural thing to take my love and gift of teaching into the sexual erotic realm of things, because I thought, I want to be able to play this role in helping people to know that, wow, number one, there are somatic sexologists, people here that are here to help you learn about your body and to find out what is true and to connect into your body. I didn't have my first orgasm until I was 42 years old.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that's like I say, I was that disconnected from my sexuality, and a lot of shame about when it happened, anything that was connected to other than my marriage. And so for me, part of my awakening was I hired a masturbation coach. A lot of people say, "Oh, I didn't know there was such a thing," and there is. And so for me, a lot of times I help people to connect to their sexuality, and the times that I have worked with people to help move beyond that addiction to their pornography bent and that reliance. So different ways where I get to really support people to come back into this experience of themselves as sexual erotic beings. And as you read in my bio, my intro, is that aspect of really connecting the spirituality and our human experience. So there's a little bit of a snapshot.
I can relate to so much of what you're talking about, and I could not relate to some of the other things you're talking about. But I was also raised, in a pretty strict religious household, headed as positives and negatives. And also the big thing that I can really relate to, you talk about the mirror and your story. Like that is my whole thing, the whole thing with Powerful Eric. I mean, that mirror and the story we tell ourselves are so incredibly important. And so I'm excited to explore that with you and hear more about that. Now, on the complete opposite side, though, the thing that I don't relate to is, you might call that with sexual anorexia. That might be, where you completely just disconnected from your sexuality and not having your first orgasm till 42. I remember being a little boy. I'm talking like super young, having my first orgasm. I'm guessing, maybe 7 or something like that, maybe even younger, having orgasm without ejaculation.
Right.
So that we're on two completely different
True.
sides of the spectrum there.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
But some of the challenges are the same. So you'd mentioned pornography, and can you speak to that?
For sure. coming back to this aspect of somatic, learning from the body, that, and again, through my training as a sexological body worker, which is somatic sex education, it's really, again, bringing people back to their bodies beyond our thoughts, beyond those, the beliefs, what we've been taught, the conditionings that we've had from society, from our religious, and for the most part, religion, is really woven into our world because it used to be the center of society. So it really ripples out. And one of the trainings that I was able to take through this body of work was called Erotic Embodiment and Pornography. And it really looked at acknowledging that pornography does happen. And while there may be common threads or themes about why people begin or use pornography, why an addiction happens, I think the big part of it is, again, coming back to the body, is how do we recognize where sometimes that sense of shame that can happen from early on, right? It's, don't touch yourself, you know, if you masturbate, you're gonna grow hair on your palms, or you're gonna go blind. Those are all kinds of things. Even the word masturbation comes from the word shame. And so to be able to then, how do we move beyond the story, not only the story we tell in our head, that play, that mind, that set. I talk about it as a mind set, the stage that's in the mind, and all the characters that are there that tell the story about who we are as sexual erotic beings and what we're doing. But to be able to now move back into an embodied experience. And I look forward, again, I'm excited for this conversation because there's just so many points to touch on to and to touch base on. It seems to be that, the different common threads that happen, but at some level, it seems to be that shame is fundamental and foundational. And so when we can really touch into what is that about, why is that playing a role in our lives? And oftentimes before it's even in a cognitive sense, right? It's not, oh, I'm gonna, I feel shameful. It's kind of what gets taken on. And so this piece about pornography, when I teach it, it's, let's take away the sense of judgment about it, because we've got so much shame and judgment about sexuality to begin with.
Mhm.
So this idea of wanting to connect there on some level, that can be the sense of, I feel disconnected from my sexuality. I feel a sense of shame. And so it drives us to stay connected with it in that way.
Mhm.
Other ways, there's this sense that, because when you think about orgasm, that it means little death. So we're looking at that, la petite mort. It's that little death. And so in that sense where there is no, we sort of lose ourselves in it all. And so it can be this perpetual sense of wanting to die to, sometimes to that shame, but also it's that dying to that sense of who we say we are. So that's why I say there's, when we go into a deeper level of things, to be able to look at what's there. And instead of judging that, is to say, how do we use that to really find out what is true for us? What is your true sexual nature, and how does it want to be expressed? And looking at the types of porn that people watch, whether it's male on female, whether it's female and female, whether it's female on male, whether it's the gay porn. There's all kinds of themes around it. And each of those things actually start to give us a glimpse into what it is that starts to speak to that true nature. So when we come back to the mirror, I say, when we look, and I think probably all of us, today have looked in the mirror once or twice, whether to do our hair, brush our teeth, get dressed. But when we look in the mirror, it's actually the opposite of what is. It doesn't show us what is, it shows us the reflection, the opposite. And so when we look at what's happening for porn, if we can look at it not just as it taking us outside of ourselves, but what does it show us about within? It can be a place of, what are our greatest pleasures? What are our greatest turn-ons? And what are our greatest wounds and places that are ready for healing?
Yeah. Lorna, let me ask you, because I had heard that a long time ago about orgasm being the little death, and honestly, I never quite really understood that. Are they like on the man's side? I could understand maybe the sperm dying. Is that what they're referring to? I don't know.
Yeah. In one sense, you can look at it that when an orgasm happens, it's almost like the lights go out in the sense that there's not this, it's this ecstasy, if you will, or there's this, oh my goodness, right? And it's just almost, sometimes there's this sense of almost losing consciousness. There's this sense
Mhm.
of whatever's happening around me is totally doesn't even exist anymore because I'm right here.
Yeah.
So it's that dying to that sense of self. It's dying to anything outside of this moment right now.
I 1,000% understand that. I mean, that's the thing with pornography and compulsive masturbation, is that it really does, like, the world is gone for that time, just like you said. Nothing else exists at that moment, and it really is can be blissful. But the challenge with the guys that I work with and myself is that if you're using porn and masturbation compulsively, then as soon as you're done, like the moment that you orgasm, then the shame comes, like, immediately. And then it starts that cycle you talk about. You feel shameful, so you want to feel better, so you do it again, and it's just this vicious cycle. And then we go to these recovery meetings where they have you say you're powerless over it, and they have you say over and over, like, you introduce yourself, "Hi, I'm Eric, I'm a sexaholic," and that is just reinforced. You look in your mirror, and I was brushing the teeth of a sexaholic or a porn addict. And finally, the day came where I'm like, this is not working. And I just was creating the login for the addiction recovery app, and I put powerful Eric. And so I changed the way I look at myself in the mirror, and I even changed my story, because my story then became like the backstory for a superhero like Batman.
Mhm, mhm. That's a beautiful story, and I know when you shared that with me when we spoke, uh, the other day, is that empowerment that really took life, if you will, through your lived experience. And when I look when the way that I look at, and again, teacher background, so I love looking at words, and my as an avid reader from the time that I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and then into teaching, where one of my jobs was as a writing specialist to teach children how to write stories. And then this whole theme of stories now in our, in the entrepreneurial world, is tell your story. It's really important for people to be able to acknowledge our stories. And when we look at a story, there's always that part that, like you say, the backstory of Batman. There's always these things that happen along the way that bring us to this place of there's something different. Whether it's there's something more, but I don't know what it is and how to access it. That was my thing. Or I just don't want to keep on going down this road. And then this journey of really searching and inside and outside, this journey that happens, and to be able to have these times where we awaken to, and to be able to really not judge what came before, but to be in deep appreciation. Because I don't know about you, I love going to movies or watching, TV shows. I think we all
Mhm.
do, and reading books and movies. We are based in story, and that every story is so beautifully and intricately created. As I say, in a movie, there's not even a piece of garbage that's blowing across the street that is accidental. That everything that shows up to bring us to this place of, I'm ready to experience myself in a new way. And I talk about, instead of those rocks or those pebbles that have, um, do you remember the story of Hansel and Gretel?
I do. I
Okay,
do.
there's a couple of different versions. One of them is that as they're leaving home, Hansel is dropping breadcrumbs along the way. Well, the situation is that they end up, when they try to go home, the breadcrumbs are nowhere to be found because the birds have eaten them.
Hmm.
The other version, which is what I I like to refer to and use, is that if he drops pebbles along the way. And so as they're going from home out into this journey, I liken that to our journey of coming from our sense of our truth, our inner essence, our divine nature. It's this journey of going away from that into this human experience. And all of these different things that show up along the way, these traumas, these shutdowns, these disconnections, these obstacles that happen along the way are those pebbles that are leading us along the way. And then what we get to do, instead of being lost, it's just kind of we find those pebbles along the way, those traumas, those things that stick in our craw, if you will, of when something happened, when we felt a sense of betrayal, where that first bit of shame happened, or that even that sense of that first orgasm that happens. But oh my goodness, and there's that shame immediately that comes, because masturbation is often done quickly, quietly, and in the dark, which speaks to the depth of shame around our sexuality. But why would we demonize something that we come from?
Yeah.
So to be able to take those pebbles and look at them, let them lead us back home to not only our greatest pleasures and even our turn-ons, but to be able to now take them back into our true sexual essence. And instead of letting those rocks or those pebbles bury us, we actually stack them up and let us rise into the power of who we are. And as a teacher, I look at words. M, or the abbreviation or prefix of EM, means it's within. So it's not about putting power into, it's actually realizing the power that's already there.
Lorna, as you're speaking, my brain is just firing in so many different directions. I have so many different angles that we can go. One thing that just comes to mind, though, I've got to say, not having an orgasm until you were 42. I had a guest on, I don't know, several months ago, and she wrote a book called The 49-Year-Old Virgin. And she expected that she would get married like in her 20s maybe and have kids. And she never found the right guy. She just never did find the right guy. So the first orgasm at 42, and this other lady being the 49-year-old virgin. Can you speak to that at all?
For sure. I would say that it really points to and highlights, Eric, this aspect of our lack of sex education that is based in a sense of sex being natural. How do we do it that is healthful and what I call erotically alive? There's a quote that Audre Lorde, and I've leaned on this in these 15 years since my sexual awakening. She says, "We tend to speak of the erotic as a quick, tantalizing sexual arousal. I speak of the erotic as that deepest life force energy that moves us in a fundamental way."
Oh, wow. Can you say that again?
I can. We tend to think of the erotic as a quick, tantalizing sexual arousal. I speak of the erotic as that deepest life force energy that moves us in a fundamental way.
Oh my gosh. And you are quoting who?
Audre Lorde.
Wow. That is an amazing quote. I'm going to have to look her up and write that down. I mean, that life force energy, like, we are blessed my clients, that come to me that have this hypersexuality that seems to be out of control or is out of control. Once we get to a certain point, I'm like, you are blessed to have this massive amount of energy, and it just is being dissipated all over the place. But if we can channel it and transform it, it can make beautiful things like music and art or starting a business or it's just incredible. So wow, I love that quote. Well, Lorna, I think this may be a great place to stop for today. and we'll have you back on the next episode. And I want to get into the next episode, maybe some of the things that people can do. Like we were talking about some of the challenges with pornography and masturbation, but when we have you back, we can talk about some of the practical things that people can do to channel that sexual energy in a healthy way.
That sounds great. I look forward to it, Eric. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for being with us, and stay with us. We will be back, or Lorna will be back in the next episode, and stay powerful.
Are you struggling with porn or sex addiction? Then apply for a free strategy call with Eric today at powerfuleric.com.
All right, for round two.
This is Porn Talk Live. Here is your host, Eric Zuzak.
Welcome back to Porn Talk. This is Powerful Eric. This show is not just about breaking addictions, it's about breaking belief systems. We are born into the matrix, and we have someone that's here to help pull us out of the matrix. Her name is Lorna Gale. She is a somatic sexologist. I'll have her again just say really briefly what that is. Welcome back, Lorna.
Thank you so much, Eric. That's
So tell us again, what is a somatic sexologist?
Mm-hmm. A somatic sexologist is someone who supports people in looking at the study and the experience of sex through the body. So how do you be your own best student, learn in this laboratory of the body and experience it through the body.
So our sexual nature has a lot to teach us, right? And
Yes.
and what I teach is that's can be one of the gateways to being the best version of yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So in the last episode, we talked about some of the challenges with masturbation and porn, either the hypersexual version of it or the complete other side of it, the sexual anorexic side of things. So what can people do? Let's speak to both of them. Let's start on the hypersexual side, as far as like engaging with pornography to the point where you want to stop it, you can't. What would you say to somebody that is struggling with something like that?
A few different things. That it really is an opportunity to feel. And I'm not just talking about that sensation when stroking and masturbating and watching. I'm talking about actually feeling at an even deeper level. So as women primarily in our culture, we've been taught you're emotional, so be emotional, but don't be sexual or you're a slut. Men are taught you're sexual, you're a stud, that type of thing, but don't be emotional.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this piece about everyone on some level is being shut down to a natural part of who we are. And I say the gift of human is to the gift of being human is to feel. And so when there's parts of us that we are shutting down, and again, that's a way that we are denying our essence, and it's like the treasure chest. Anything that is really beautiful and powerful and of great value, it's usually under lock and key. It's, put the danger sign on. Oh, don't go here, detour. And so to be able to look at how our sexuality has been shamed, demonized.
Yes, it has.
And so was a bit okay. So it becomes this aspect and this opportunity to start to feel. So when I'm working with men, it's primarily who I work with around the porn, some women as well. Primarily, it's this piece about instead of being this, turn it off, don't go near it, and this struggle is kind of no, let's use it. So I remember one client that I had, he would book in and we would work, 2 or 3 hours. I can do this in person as well as online. But he would book in 2 or 3 hours of a session. We would do various mindset pieces as well. And then he would set up his computer and he would masturbate. And then I would coach him on various things in terms of, okay, let yourself feel the sensation. Okay, now breathe. You should bring your body and breathe and feel what's happening in your body. So instead of staying up in the head, while we start to connect back into the body. So using the porn and that propensity to it, that compulsiveness to use it, is to use that to come back home and feel and bridge it back and forth. So this back and forth. And there's various meditations that I offer and that we work on to be able to bridge that to come back home to themselves. And so it's that opportunity as well. It also is an opportunity when people get to feel into things, whether it's the physical sensation or it's the emotions that start to come. Then it's just, okay, let yourself feel those things. Feel into that as fully as you can, that emotion, instead of shutting things down, is let yourself feel that shame when you were humiliated or when you were punished for connecting to your sexuality. And those are a couple of the different ways to use it. And there was another one that came and it's not there right now. So I'm just going to wait and see if it comes back up again.
Sure. So, oops. So one of the challenges with guys like you're talking about it is that shame from either the masturbation and or the pornography. Oh, and you know what? I meant to ask you in the last episode. You said the word masturbation. What's its association with shame? What's
That's it. The root word of masturbation comes from the word shame. It's sort of defined as shame.
wow?
Mhm,
Well, that pretty much says it all.
mhm.
I mean, because words are powerful. Um, so I guess maybe self pleasure might be a better.
That's one way for sure. And the way that I do it is I call it PEP, personal erotic practice. And there's multiple things using breath, sound, and movement. That's a part of how I coach people to be able to really come back in. So personal erotic practice, it's not even just about genitals. It's about, and you mentioned it earlier, Eric, about it's that life force. It's all of who we are. I think of various people that they take them through this with porn or without, that it's really, they find that their creativity, their writing, their art, their relationships, their communication, their ability to step into their leadership at work, it all comes because we come from sex. Everything of our life flows from it. And so it's going to show up in different times in different ways for everybody in their own way. So to be able to, how do we move beyond this sense of these genitals as something that's just to build orgasm? And in fact, one of the things that I do as well, there's a couple of different practices. One of them is, because we have this idea that orgasm is the destination, the ultimate, and even how many orgasms can I have in what period of time?
Mhm.
I say in what I coach in the PEP is that when you feel an orgasm start to come on, is actually breathe and take your touch elsewhere and breathe and spread the energy.
Hmm.
And so, and I take, okay, breathe. And if I say, if 10 is ejaculation, 9 is the point of no return, let me know when you get to an 8. And so we build, 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 and we get to, oh, it's an 8. Okay, great. Let's relax. And so that upregulation, which is what the common trajectory is, right? Of what we're familiar with for men is build, 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 right?
Mhm.
And that, going back to as a young bride, that's what I thought. That's all I was aware of. I thought that's what it was. So when I got to this point, I thought I'd lost it. We weren't aware. And again, that's when I talk about the sex education. There's not the sex education. It's out now, and people are starting to become more aware of it through somatic sexologists. But a trajectory for women can be, it's a feminine, it's the upregulation and downregulation, upregulation and downregulation. And when it build, that excitation, there's that tension, and then the relax is actually the body relaxes. And the more you relax, the more you feel. And then build. And it doesn't go to the same place because you're relaxed, you're now able to feel even more and go down. And so riding those waves. So that's what I do is I take people on that wave, those waves, helping them to ride that erotic energy and build. And I say, when you feel an orgasm come on, that's where spread the energy, use your breath, take your touch elsewhere in their body instead of just, touch on the parts of your body. Touch. Some men, some women love having their nipples touched, and some don't. Don't go there. What's it like on your ankles? What's on your thighs? What's on your, just touch. What's it like to touch other parts of your body? Let your whole body be this erotic sexual organ, if you will. And the more you breathe, the more you feel. And so using your breath. So those are some of the ways that I coach people and take them through that so they can do that. Another way is and it's a Taoist practice, is build that erotic energy. And when it feels it's just getting really heightened, then I take them through a breathing, lots of intense breathing, circular breathing, and then tensing the muscles, and then just release. And letting that erotic energy do what it will. Sometimes there's enlightenment that happens. Sometimes there's full body orgasm. Sometimes there's tremoring as traumas are released. Sometimes there's aha. Sometimes there's clarity and inspiration. Sometimes there's just deep peace.
Breathing can be so powerful. I do breath work, and I love that you're talking about that and feeling it through your whole body, because using pornography and having an orgasm with a person is so different, because when I'm just using pornography, it's just my genitals. But if I have sex with my wife, it's like this whole body experience. It's a completely different thing. And I'll never forget when I stopped, when I stopped using pornography and masturbation for a while, I had an orgasm with my wife. I was like, wow.
Aww.
Oh, this is how sex is supposed to be.
Oh, that's great. That's
So,
great.
yeah, that having that full body experience, and like you said, like, breathing into it and feeling your whole body. That's awesome. But what about the guy though that, like you were talking about earlier, that has so much shame built about let's just say masturbation?
Mhm.
What would you say to that guy that he's just, he's buried in so much shame
Mhm.
about not just pornography, but even the masturbation side? What would you say to that guy?
Mhm. At that point, it seems one of the crucial pieces to address and to use as a portal is actually starting to connect genitals and heart. Those parts often get disconnected. There's this head and this head that are connected, right? But to now start to connect the heart and the genitals. And sometimes that's simply placing your hand on your heart and cupping your genitals, your scrotum, your cock, and just being there and just breathing. And it's not about an agenda. It's not about, oh, we have to get some expectations. Just no, just being present to that. And sometimes that it's simply that can start to now loosen, if you will, some of the, like a rusty bolt. It can be one of those things that starts to loosen it up, to say, I'm okay. I'm okay. And again, when you talk about breath, when you think about it, so number one, we come from sex. And what do? when that baby is born, we listen and wait for that first breath. And when it comes to the end of life or end of the human experience, if you will, we talk about they took their last breath.
Mm-hmm.
So breath is life. And so when we tap into the breath, and again, when we think about, so often when we are in this shame place, we tense up, we hold our breath. And so even that piece of just holding genitals and heart and just breathing, and just noticing, where does the breath go? Where does the body move? Where does it not move? And not even a sense of trying to fix, but can we notice what is and let that noticing, that awareness itself be a key piece of that lubricant of awakening to our wholeness that the shame is just covering up. I talk about the shroud of shame. That shame is not our true essence. The true essence is our oneness, both with all of humanity, all of oneness within ourselves and with our divine state. That's our natural essence. That's our natural state of being. And so to be able to have this story, this human experience, okay, let's create these things where suddenly that which you come from is wrong and bad, and you shouldn't feel it, you shouldn't do it, you shouldn't enjoy it. And heaven forbid that you enjoy it a whole lot and often, right? And so to be able to, this shroud of shame comes over, and the shroud of should and the shroud of shouldn't. And it becomes a very heavy mantle to wear. And so, and it seems like every time we feel this inclination to connect to that true essence of who we are through a sexual experience or a sexual fantasy or watching the porn, it's like it puts another layer on. And I'm saying we're taking them off, and breath can help us to do that.
Mm. I love your analogy, or what you call the shroud of shame, because uh, I know I help my clients to take off that shroud of shame and become a superhero. I am powerful, Eric. And I have the clients, clients, when they get to a certain point in the process, come up with their own power name, their own superhero name, to change the way they look at themselves in the mirror and drop the shroud. And instead, thank you for this. Take the shroud off, or turn the shroud into a cape. Thank you for that.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you for that. Turn the shroud into a superhero cape.
I love that. That's so great. That's
Oh, well, Lorna, tell me about maybe you have some client success stories around this, or maybe, what's one of the biggest transformations you've seen, or what's a funny story around any of this, or, your all your work with all your different clients, does one stick out?
the one that flashes into mind right away is, and it's not specific to sexuality, and yet it feels important to share that. It's a woman from overseas, and it's not a secret. She posts about our work together all over, and her work is about working with women who have been, and men as well, who have been in a similar situation. She was one who had childhood sexual abuse at the hand of her stepfather for 14 years, from age 4 till 18. And so she and I worked together, and she was able to go from one of her emails that she sent to me. She said, "Lorna, I have to share this with you." And I think that and I'm getting tingles as I'm saying this, because I think that this is really, it feels like this is really a key piece for a lot of people. Whether it's, and porn the use of porn, or in sometimes what can be seen as the overuse of porn, while it can be judged, it can also be that place that provides a survival mechanism, if you will, for our life's experiences up to that point, or that have brought us to that place. But the piece that she was very very disconnected, even though in her youth she had been what would be called promiscuous or trying various things, but still very disconnected and feeling just so much shame about what she had gone through. But what she wrote to me was, Lorna, she said, I was out on the beach walking with my husband, and I felt sensations in my feet on the sand that I have never felt before. Because as she was able to address those parts of her that had been shut down through shame, through trauma, through various pieces, that she was able now to feel the sensation of a greater aspect of life. And we talk about things in polarities. We talk about there's pain and there's pleasure. And as we can allow ourselves to feel what we might call pain or what we call pleasure, it actually starts to expand our ability to experience and feel it all. And as that happens, we actually start to drop the labels even of pain and pleasure, and just realizing, wow, what I get to experience and to feel through this body. And I talk about a pleasure cap that, and again, I look at orgasms and I approach them in a different way than a lot of people do. Instead of saying, okay, how many orgasms can you have in a short period of time? How many kinds? Laughgasm, crygasm, throatgasm, all of these different kinds of anal orgasm. What kind of orgasms can you have? Is kind of, what if the orgasm was actually showing you your pleasure cap? So that's where taking them on this journey of, okay, let's take it up higher, take it up higher. It's expanding their ability to feel pleasure. And this often for a lot of men, it will take away that premature ejaculation, because that's how much pleasure I can handle. It's kind of, no, let's keep on going. Let's keep on going. And start to expand. And so it takes them into, again, what is crucial to my work is coming back home to themselves and feeling what is there, reclaiming that which was overridden through, they didn't have their voice, they had consent was not allowed in terms of being who they were naturally. And so it takes them back into themselves to be able to find out, who are they? What is real and true for them in this moment?
Wow. For some clients, that can be a root of the hypersexuality, having been molested as a child. And also, that's a trauma, of course. But if it's not being molested as a child, it's some other trauma. And so when I work with a client, the first part is pulling the dirt off and all the trauma and all that. And then once we get through that work, then we get to the gold and start polishing the gold and, developing that superhero part of themselves. But that trauma part was frustrating for me, because I went the traditional route to get help, and we would just talk about it and just talk about it and talk about it. And so I had to go on my own and find tools like the emotional freedom technique, EFT, or tapping, and other modalities to help release some of those traumas. So what do you do with your clients, that, like the example you just gave? How were you able to help that client?
And a big part of it is going into feel. So we look at mindset, look at the thoughts that start to come up. And you mentioned as well about looking at, it's not just breaking the habit, it's about busting those beliefs. And I look at the word belief or believe, and in the middle is a great big L-I-E, a great big lie. So every belief is built on a lie.
Oh, I love that. That's good. Got to use that too. Lorna, you're giving me a lot of good stuff here.
And when you know, it's this idea. So don't even trade one belief for another. Is recognize the beliefs that are there. Find out, dig down, and find out what are the beliefs. So for her, it was really about allowing. And I always start with the body is wise. So let's use what the body's presenting. Is it presenting a physical pain? Is it presenting some emotional turmoil? Is it presenting, you know, the thought that keeps looping around and around and around? And one of the things I often do, and people often sometimes will think, well, what does that have to do? I say, hey, welcome to our session. Tell me what's happening. What's going on? It feels like you're sort of bringing into the session with you. And it might be, oh yeah, I just had this argument with somebody, or I'm still trying to process something, or I'm trying to figure out my finances. It's just kind of, okay, great. You know, anything else, anything else. And then we take the thing that is actually getting their attention more. That's where we start. And it might be that the bike fell off of their wheel fell off of their bike on their way and they had to walk. Okay, let's use that, because that becomes a portal into what's really going on. And we just, like a dandelion, I talk about, a lot of people will like to, with dandelions, they try to cut off the dandelion and, you know, do it that way. But what if we were to harvest the dandelion, the flowers, the leaves, and even go down and get the whole root and let all of it be there? So that's what we would do. I take them down into, where is this leading us? And letting them feel the emotion, to know that they're held. It's okay to feel. Just go ahead and feel. I'm here with you. Feel as fully as you can. Use your breath to let you feel it. So that's one of the ways. It's sometimes to look at, again, that mindset, not in think positively, but here's the mindset. Here's the play. Who are the characters that are at play? Because what's happening on the stage in this play that's happening in our mind, the mindset, it's a whole lot different than what's actually happening here. But it becomes the lens through which we see ourselves and interpret everything that we're seeing around us.
Is that the spiritual alchemy that you speak of?
No, it's connected to it for sure.
Okay.
And when I look at, so I shouldn't say no, yes, and an expanded perspective of the alchemy is really looking at, we look at, and I use the Garden of Eden as an analogy for that, is here we are, you know, in our wholeness and this, our divinity, you know, the human experience in what is perceived as duality, female, male. But all of a sudden, this act of, you know, taking the apple, and here's the serpent, and, you know, tempted Eve, and she offered it to Adam, and there became the fall of mankind and the shame with the fig leaves and all of that. And again, looking at the mirror is, what if we actually look at it? It's not that way, but that it was actually the serpent representing the kundalini, that sexual erotic energy. The
Mhm.
apple is actually an aphrodisiac. You know, when you bite into a juicy apple, it's just like, oh, right. And so that Eve saying, hey, Adam, would you partake in this with me? And you know, there's the whole piece. But there's where it was kind of, oh, they know that's what it is. It's kind of, yeah, we know our wholeness, we know our divinity. And so this looking at the feminine, and while we look at female and male as if they are separate, I say, good, that's a part of the story. So how do we now look at, and instead of looking at female, male, we look at, oh yeah, there's different bodies, that's okay. And there's feminine and a masculine. And we have in our culture looked at feminine is being repressed and masculine up. But again, the mirror, what if it was like this? Feminine being spirit. What's it like to have a human experience? I need form. Oh, there's the masculine. So it becomes this journey. So instead of having as if sex is something to be separating for us, and we're supposed to try to find our partner, we're supposed to find our wholeness through, you know, two shall become one. It's just, what if one was never two at the beginning? Just that's the experience that we had. So it's taking this sexual experience, all that we've come to know about sex, or how we've perceived it is, you know, it's shameful. We have to have somebody else. It's to look at what's the spiritual essence of that. And in my work as a pro-dom over the years, and in my work as a bondage practitioner and a bondage trainer, it's about really helping people to come back home into knowing their oneness, feeling their power. For women, the empowerment piece is, and I empower men and women. but it's to really recognize that feminine power, sexuality, and leadership as representative of the feminine flow, that spiritual aspect of who we are. And the masculine, that masculine form, is to know that it is in service to the feminine. And does that mean that one is better than the other? Not at all. It's this dance together. And in my work as in these various realms, as a somatic sexologist, I weave it all together. It's really about recognizing that we're whole within, that there's the feminine, the masculine within us. And oftentimes when porn addiction happens, there's a part that is trying to find that other part within. But we've been taught to look outside. So it's just perpetual. I need to connect. It's out there. It's out there. No, it's come back home. It's all right here within.
Wow, Lorna, I could listen to you all day, but we're coming up towards the end here. But I'm going to ask you one last question. What you're talking about here at the end, that sounds like the erotic liberation. Is that what you're talking about? What's the erotic liberation?
It's that sense of really being free in our knowing, in our experience, who we are. And as I say, that what we're looking at, the say women's empowerment, call it feminine empowerment, I see it as a spiritual awakening for all of us, because we come back into this, oh, we're all here together, not only in what's around us, what we see and perceive around us, but all right here, right here. And that oftentimes those addictions that happen, or the retraction and the anorexic aspect of things, is that part of feeling that disconnection from our wholeness. And I use the word healing in the sense of, it's not that we're broken. It's not that there's pieces missing. Healing is actually a recognition that we are whole right now.
Wow, Lorna, you have so much wisdom in you. I would love to have you back again sometime. Lorna, so there's people that are listening right now, they are as blown away as I am. What can they do to reach out to you if they want to partake of your services? How do they connect with you?
Thank you, Eric. And anybody who feels that impulse, whether a large or small impulse, to reach out, I welcome meeting with them. You can contact me on Facebook. I'm Lorna Gale there. I also have my page on the Trusted Bodywork site. So trustedbodywork.com, Lorna Gale. And then you can connect to me through there as well. But reach out. I'm happy to hop onto a call to really be able to find out what is that piece that's calling to you, and am I a person that can support you in that journey. And it's really important that in my work, it's don't follow me. I get to be a guide for people to find their way back home to themselves.
Jeez, I mean, you've just totally blown me away. Wow, you have so much wisdom. Well, Lorna, thank you for being here. And so please reach out to Lorna if you are so inspired. And Lorna, you have any last words of wisdom before we go?
I just see, there seems like there's something. I'm just going to sit and see what comes. There is a moment. A moment that you will know your wholeness and your freedom. And that moment is here now.
Well, thank you. And remember, you are designed for accomplishment. You are engineered for success, and you're endowed with the seeds of greatness.
Thanks for listening. If you're struggling with porn or sex addiction, reach out to Eric at powerfuleric.com.